to the second episode of ChatLoopBackOff. It is February 15th, 2024. This time it is bright and snowy outside. We got a little storm that just came through and dumped a bunch of snow in a really narrow band. It's also chilly. It's about 26 Fahrenheit or -3 Celsius. But that's still actually up from, I think it was 15 Fahrenheit, which would be like -9.5 Celsius. So this program deep dives into the realms of the cloud native landscape. I'm your host, Jeffrey Sica, but many of you already know me as Gphy. I'm thrilled to have you here this time because today we are focusing on k8sGPT. It's a newly accepted sandbox project into the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. This live stream is a sibling to the similarly named ClashLoopBackOff, which is an event we put on at different KubeCons. In that event, we pit two community members against each other to accomplish a technical goal of my choosing, and it's meant to be a challenge, right? It's meant to be laid back for the audience, not for the participants, but it's generally fun. This stream is more of a self-induced version of ClashLoopBackOff, but it's me. I am looking at different projects or techniques or ideas in the cloud native landscape, and I haven't done much in-depth research into them. We're gonna sit here and we're gonna learn it together. I like diving into topics with fresh eyes, and this is how I would normally learn if I was doing this off stream. So kind of doing this and exposing this, hopefully we can all walk away having learned something new. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. During the stream, feel free to drop questions in chat. I'll get to as many as possible. We are here to try and learn together. So if you know the answer or something, or I'm stuck and you have an idea for me to try, please speak up. We did that in the last episode and it worked great. And I definitely missed something and people helped me out. All that said, this is an official live stream of the CNCF and is subject to the CNCF Code of Conduct. Please do not add anything to the chat or questions that would violate the Code of Conduct. Basically, respect all of your fellow participants. Please respect me. Don't be a jerk. This video will be put out onto our YouTube channel afterwards, so folks that couldn't make it to the live stream can still learn along with us, just, asynchronously. Before we get started diving into LLMs, a couple pieces of news I'd like to highlight from the last week in our little corner of the world. And these links, actually, I'll show this afterwards, but we have a GitHub repo where I track any of the demos or commands that I ran, utilities that are downloaded. All of that is put into a GitHub repo as well as a summary of what we did. All of these links will be in there as well, so don't worry, you're not missing anything. Also, a little bit of pseudo personal news. There is going to be a cat somewhere here because we let our cat downstairs and she gets full reign of the house and she's more important than this. No offense, but she will be around and she'll probably push the mic over and it'll be a good old time. All right, news time. There have been a couple really solid blog posts actually that have been published on the CNCF blog. I promise I don't just chill CNCF news, but these have been really good blog posts. One of them was a deep dive into policy as code in the software supply chain. What they were really diving into was using things like Kyverno to enforce policies, but that's kind of, I don't want to say basic, but that's what you would expect. What they really pushed for is how to define policies in the business landscape and then write those policies in machine code essentially so that the business policies can be enforced. They emphasize a lot about codifying policies and mainly leveraging the open source tools that we have out there for both implementation and evaluation of policies. So I will make sure that link gets dropped somewhere. Similarly, I should have mentioned, the Policy as Code blog post was written by one of our tags or technical advisory groups. That was Tag Security. Tag Storage also wrote a blog post highlighting cloud native disaster recovery and how to do that for stateful workloads. In that, they outlined this concept of CNDR, or Cloud Native Disaster Recovery. And they talk about how to essentially track, monitor, and evaluate how good you are at disaster recovery. And some, I guess, again, going back to the policy thing, policies and techniques to try and prevent stateful workloads from just completely getting torpedoed, assuming you lose everything in your data center or your cloud. Last but not least, yesterday was Valentine's Day. It was also Kubernetes patch day. So it was patch release day. All of the currently valid and up to snuff Kubernetes versions had patch releases that were cut. Please check the release notes, see what's been updated, see if there's anything that is important that you need to, update for. So that's that. Let's now look into what k8sGPT actually is, what it does, and there is a small chance, depending on what happens, I might actually install it on my home lab, and we'll get to kind of mess around with that live. So let me move that there. Let me move that here. And let's share my screen. Screen one, boom. All right, that looks good. Okay, does that look good? I'm going to say that looks good. I might make it a little bigger. Yep, okay, cool. Like I mentioned, each episode winds up being a folder under ChatLoopBackOff, and actually, while I'm here, I will show that really quick. CNCF. CLBO. So under the episodes, we'll have a little README, and it'll link to the YouTube video after the fact, the news that we've talked about, and then kind of a summary of what I've done and any relevant links. Feels like that's the right way to do this. Also, any of artifacts that came out of it, these were the YAML files that we use to evaluate Gateway API and actually install Gateway API. So we're going to do something similar here. Ahead of time, all I have done, actually, all I've done is installed k8sGPT. That's it. So how did I do that? Well, on this machine, I am running a flavor of Fedora Silverblue called Universal Blue. Specifically, it's called Bluefin. And it is kind of a container-based desktop. It's really awesome. Highly recommend folks look at it. But one of the cool things is it actually ships with Brew. So all I did was do a brew install k8sGPT. It's going to auto update, but boom. k8sGPT is installed. And I guess the latest homebrew version was built, a month ago. Cool. So we've got a pretty up-to-date version of k8sGPT. So let's see if they have kind of a getting started guide. Get it now. Yes. So what does k8sGPT actually do? Based on, what we're reading here and what other people have told me, it uses the power of LLMs and AI, hype cycle, but to analyze workloads within your cluster and potentially alert if there is something wrong, as well as help you debug what is wrong. So if there's something that is wow, I fell into my own trap. Something that is crash loop back offing, or something that's just throwing an error, it will help debug things to give you something more actionable than, oh, this pod is erroring out. It'll actually give you a bit more info. Codified SRE knowledge. AI cuts through the noise. I know these folks. They're awesome. So I'm going to trust it. Getting started guide. So let's ensure k8sGPT is installed. Safe to say that's good. And let's connect to a Kubernetes cluster. Documentation for setting up a kind cluster. I am all about that. So let's do it. Kind is just one of many methods to create a quick and, I won't even say dirty, but a quick and small Kubernetes cluster. There's K3s, there's Minikube, there's Kind. There's other, projects out there. Those tend to be the big three that a lot use. I tend to prefer Kind for a couple reasons. Three reasons. One, I know the creator and I'm friends with him, so I'm here to support. But that aside, the Kubernetes project itself actually uses Kind for their own CI. So it's the closest, in my opinion, way of getting a vanilla open source Kubernetes cluster running. I haven't looked at Minikube recently, but I know K3s does some different things in order to make it even smaller. But it does change some things, like it's not using SRE, it's using SQLite and some other things. The third main reason why I like using Kind is you can use some of the API machinery like configs, like kubeatom configs, to pipe those into Kind and get a cluster in the shape that you want. Okay, so we have Kind k8sGPT. We also have Kind. But I guess Kind is an artifact from last week. So we're in Kind k8sGPT. We are in the default namespace. I'll even blow this up a little more just so it's easier to read. Cool. So let's see what's next. View the different commands. I am going to go through this, kind of top to bottom, and then we might go off script. And now authenticate with OpenAI. All right, so this does rely on a third-party service of OpenAI. Like I said, I have done no research. I'm curious if there is a way to get it to run off of a local LLM. That would be kind of interesting, especially if you're hosting your own, even if it's, a 7 billion parameter model. Okay, so ensure you've created an account with OpenAI. Generate a token from the back end. So k8sGPT generate. Let's see what that does. Whoop. Copy the token for the next step. So it's gonna I'm gonna wind up generating a new secret key and then putting it in here. So we might have to go a little bit k8sGPT, a little bit on the other screen. So we're gonna copy this, put that over here. k8sGPT auth add. Okay, so you can specify a backend. Hopefully that means what I was saying earlier is possible. AI model GPT 3.5 turbo. Okay. We should be good. So current context, get nodes. Okay, and then we need to create a bad pod. So let's make that YAML really quick. Badpod.yaml. So create a broken pod YAML. Pod has the wrong image tag. Yep, okay. So theoretically, we do, gv cncf. Oh no, code cncf clbo. 15. Bad pod. So bad pod has been created. And it should be throwing error image pull. Let's just make sure that we are all on the same page. Error image pull. Sweet. So next up, it's probably going to have us analyze it. Yep. So let's do k8sGPT analyze and see what happens. AI not used, explain not set. Did I miss something? Or is this actually what it should be coming up with? Executing this command will generate a list of issues. In the k8sR example, a message should be displayed highlighting the problem. Well, let's make sure I didn't screw up adding the OpenAI off. Off list. Active OpenAI. Okay. Oh, local AI. Sweet. So that kind of answered my question from earlier. You can actually run some local AIs. Yay. For local LMs. But it says AI not used, explain not set. Oh, I'm just dumb and I need to read further. Okay, so it's just dumping out the basic info intelligently, the basic info of what the error is for the user to interpret. And then if you pass explain, it will actually pipe the error to an LLM and actually read it out. So theoretically, Kubernetes is unable to pull the image due to an error. Verify the image name and version is correct. Yep. We definitely need to do that. We don't have network issues because if we did, I would not be streaming. And then if the image isn't available, try a different one. Congratulations. You have created a local Kubernetes cluster and deployed a broken pod and analyzed it. That's all I needed. That's all I needed to see. So there's another thing that I'm really interested in. They have an in-cluster operator. So this, right now, as we're using k8sGPT is a tool to help you, like a person, an SRE, insert persona here, interact with a cluster by hand to help debug it. Does the in-cluster operator... Oh, now I hear the cat crying. Does the in-cluster operator do any additional magic sauce? That's the question. Using OpenAI. Create a secret with the token. Heck, let's just add this into kind really quick. Actually, what I might do, I might switch over to my home lab and then see if something there is angry. Get pods a y prep v running prep v completed. I'm probably making a lot of people upset by typing that. Nope. No Angie pods. So let's get back to the kind demo. All right, so let's install this operator onto our kind cluster. So let's add this repo. Helm repo update, and then we'll just copy pasta the whole thing in. It has been added. So it adds it to the k8sGPT operator namespace. I need to deploy a secret again. So I'm gonna pop that over quick. Huh. Guess I'm creating a new key. 2. Copy, paste. Okay, so secret has been created, and then deploying a k8sGPT resource. Okay. So k8sGPT, k8sGPT sample, namespace, k8sGPT operator system that we created. Let's go a little off script. Let's do GPT-4 Turbo. I think that is allowed to me. OpenAI model list. Yes, cool. Let's try this one. Secret is done. Anonymized false. That's fine. Language is English. That's fine. I'm curious what this CRD like all actually is. Sync. Slack web. Ooh. Now we're looking at cool things. So reference operator overview. There we go. Can run as a Kubernetes operator inside the cluster. Provided. Okay, so can you set up in-cluster metrics and then anything that k8sGPT like finds, Prometheus can scrape out and throw an alert? I feel like I'm getting off track. I should probably just throw this in there and see what happens. I'm definitely coming back for you though, because if we can have it, thanks Copilot, if we can have it dump anything weird that it finds into Slack, like I kind of like that pattern. I'd be curious if there are other syncs that already exist, but we'll dig into that in a second. Let's see if this version is right and up to date. Close you, get back here. O326. Haha. All right, let's apply this to our kind cluster and see what happens. Cluster operator. So deployed a k8sGPT resource. Oh, yay. Out of cluster traffic to AI backends. In the above example, enable AI is set to true. This option allows cluster deployment to use the backend filter and improved responses to users. Oh, that's kind of neat. Okay. So you can prevent it from reaching out to third-party like AI services by setting that to false. That kind of makes sense. Local AI and Azure OpenAI are supported, and they're also looking to do kind of a way to serve in cluster models. That's neat. So when you run this, I'm assuming it's creating a result. Well, there's a result CRD, and then we can just dump this out, and it's going to give the same thing from earlier. No. Oh, right. Need to be in there. Okay, so there's the run that we created and with the updated version. So now let's go back and run this. And there we go. So items, a result, name, default broken pod, namespace, k8sGPT operator. Kubernetes can't find the specified Nginx image in Docker Hub. Very similar to what we got before. There is a difference from what we received or got back in earlier when we were just using the command line, because that command line was using GPT-3.5 Turbo, and we're using GPT-4 Turbo for this. Default broken pod. Okay. So I guess my next question is, so it's a k8sGPT operator, so it's not, it's only going to act on new CRDs that are created. So it's not going to run things automatically. It's not going to create these new runs on a cron schedule, is it? Which will await a k8sGPT resource before anything. Yep. Here's the k8sGPT resource. And there are the results. I kind of want to dig into this. This is like, I get the idea of wanting, I get the idea, how do I put it? I feel like this is half done. This has to have some way to, on the regular, run against a cluster and then give feedback back. Luna, hush. You are not the one I was expecting to be trouble today. So let's see, is there a separate repo for the operator? Yes, there is. Behavior and scope of managed k8sGPT workload. On the example, this is, I believe, really close to where we were at. Okay. Monitor multiple clusters. Ooh, syncs. Okay, so there is Slack and there's Mattermost. And then setting an image pull secret. Okay, so you can host it yourself. That makes sense. Let's look at the Helm chart quick. That's probably super small. I just blew up the wrong window. There we go. So Grafana controller manager, image k8sGPT operator. Interesting. I really would have expected this. Oh, that's too small. I really would have expected this to be able to run periodically or run essentially put a watch on all events. And if an event comes up that is not expected, like error image pull, just outright error, anything that is the equivalent of not exiting 0 or running, it would then be able to run and output some sort of report. Yo, where are y'all's roadmap at? I want to see if this is on the horizon, because this is like, it's awesome. This is a very good example and application of what LLMs can do, being able to take somewhat nebulous errors and unravel them a bit. But also, I was somewhat expecting this to equally be able to surface alerts and issues as they came up. Charter, adopters list. All on backend's key features. So data is anonymized before being sent to an AI backend. That's pretty nice. So it won't. Okay, that's actually really cool to read. So imagine this is in your cluster and you have pods and workloads, and the names of those workloads might indicate something you do not want publicly available. What will happen is it will anonymize any of the relevant information specific to your cluster. I like that a lot. I saw the whole anonymous config option in the YAML earlier, and I wasn't 100% sure what they meant. Now I understand, and this is really, really good. Imagine you worked at a hospital and a patient comes through, and a patient, like think like a research hospital, I guess. A patient comes through, there happens to be like some analysis being done against their lab results. You might actually have the workload name be like the patient's medical record number or something. And, you could be unknowingly exfiltrating HIPAA data, which would be bad. PHI, very bad. This, very good. That's awesome. k8sGPT stores config data in, okay. So when you put your API key in here, make sure it's not like a public computer, please and thank you. Remote caching. That also makes me super happy. So what this means is if k8sGPT is running against your cluster and you have 10 of the same error, exact same, it's the same pod, it's the same everything except maybe the timestamp in the object. You can set up a cache so that every time it's not hitting and consuming valuable GPU resources, aka money, and just return back what it's already gotten back from looking at a extremely similar error. By extremely similar, we're talking the only things that probably it would ignore the unique ID of the object as well as the date of the object. I'm just guessing here, but if like the namespace, essentially, you have this holy trinity of how to identify an object. You have kind, you have namespace, and you have name. And if there's an error, I'm assuming if there's an error with that uniquely identified object and the same error is happening, it's just maybe a different time. Maybe there's a new version of the object, but it's still the deployment is throwing an error. That will prevent you from just wasting money and getting the same information back. Love that. Custom analyzers. You wish to write your own analyzer. Oh, this is dope. Okay. Okay, so k8sGPT can also pipe the data that it gets back into an analyzer that you or other people can write. I really like that. I like how extensible that can be. And I just like the flexibility. There are some times where, like me personally, I'll just want to write something custom just to kind of see how things work in the background. And this kind of will let me scratch that itch. Nice. Okay. So remote caching, custom analyzers, boom. But there's not a way to continue, like have it run continually or have it run when it detects or the operator detects an error. Let's look at their features. Event anonymization, deep dive alerts. I wonder if that's also just out of scope of what they're trying to accomplish. Because it is relatively easy to just create a cron job that would a cron job that would create the type of run that they would want, and the operator would run against that. That's something that I don't want to just sit here on screen and read GitHub issues for too long, so I am gonna like do that one offline. But like, I don't even want to know what Copilot's trying to auto complete that to. Actually, thank you, Copilot. You're so smart. Look up Alex about periodic runs from k8sGPT. Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a broken record right now. That functionality would take this to the next level. Not only when something wonky happens with a cluster, it then, hey, we see these pods aren't getting scheduled. Based on the error, we think it's because there's not enough GPU resources. That saves an SRE like 3 or 4 commands trying to look up the error, also look at the state of the cluster, and try and reconcile the two. Because that type of error might come up and it'll just say, there's not enough resources expected. And you kind of have to dig a little bit. So, what else around k8sGPT can we show? Integrations. Okay. Let's see what this has. Trivy and Prometheus. So k8sGPT integration activate. Trivy, once activated, it will install the Trivy Kubernetes operator into the cluster. Oh, now that's kind of cool. So just out of the box, did it close? Closed one extra tab. Out of the box, k8sGPT can install Trivy for you, integrate with Trivy, and then you can use different filters out of Trivy and also analyze the output from the Trivy operator. That's wonderful. That's really, really cool. Also being able to just kind of, not at a glance, but dump all the CVs that were found. Here's the remediation. Boom. That's really nice. Now, what does Prometheus do? It doesn't deploy resources in the cluster, but it assumes that Prometheus stack is already in the cluster and you specify the namespace. That is a reasonable assumption. Found installation to otherwise Angie error. And then once there, k8sGPT has access to config relabel, config validate. Okay, so by integration in this case, it pulls out your Prometheus config and will do an analysis and if there's something wrong or off with your Prometheus config, it'll actually output some meaningful information, including how to fix it. I'm down with this. And then again, filters we talked about earlier, we can actually write our own filters if we so chose, assuming we follow their schema. This is cool. It's not that I'm disappointed. It's just I really think there should be some sort of periodic monitoring with it, and maybe that's coming, or maybe that is like a feature that vendors will try and bake up. I don't know, but this is awesome. Am I going to install this in my home lab? Probably not. I wind up having only one or two of the same error in my home lab, and it has to do with running on kind of old and kind of jank gaming machines from like 10 years ago that I repurposed. So it's like hardware, the machine just kind of dies, and then I have to go and reboot it, and like that fixes it. So this seems a little too much, but I'm also very, very excited to see where this is going to be in 6 months. I was really interested in what they were doing before they joined the CNCF. I'd been following at least just the project and the project health, not using it. Yeah, I can't imagine where they're going to be in 6 months, because I feel like where they were 6 months ago, they've come a long way already. Of note, they have all their information in their community repo. If you are interested in helping out, if you are an SRE that also wants to try and leverage LLMs, this is probably a really good place to look. If you're an SRE dealing with Kubernetes specifically, though. Otherwise, I think that's where we're going to wrap this episode. I don't want to just, again, surf around a GitHub repo too much on my own. I will say thank you all for joining. I will update the GitHub repo with this today's episode and all the artifacts and links. And I will probably be reaching out and however and wherever I reach out. If I get an answer, I will update the episode notes with what I get back regarding some form of like periodic checks. So otherwise, yeah. Thank you all for joining. Hope this was useful. It was at least fun for me. So hope you had fun too. Happy Thursday. Bye.